actually an interesting segue. Well, you don't know this, but we were just talking in Torah study about taking out, when we take out the Torah in a traditional sort of, it's not in our prayer book, there is the verse from the 6th Torah portion. And it's like it feels like a battle cry in the and the idea was, without going through the whole conversation that we had in Torah study, was that sort of it's like a reminder, or maybe it's a through challenging times, like when you're faced with enemies, either physical enemies or spiritual enemies or emotional, whatever it is, God is with us, Torah is with us, and when we're in better times, when there's like gathering back, or at the end of a war, God is with us, and that's what you just sang. My help from, Esai and I lift my eyes to the heavens. What is the source of my strength? My strength comes from God. It's like a nice connection. So any of you who had been in Torah study and now are here, that's just a little segue to what Molly's saying, and you didn't even know. So Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We will officially begin on page 74 with Mat. Continuing on page 77, I think I mean 76. Prayer for, or a blessing really, gratitude for the way our bodies work. We pair that one with the one on the next page, just remembering every morning that our souls are pure. So, page 76.
אשר יצר את האדם בחוכמה ובראו נקבים נקבים חלולים חלולים אשר יצר את האדם בחוכמה
My soul came to me pure, drawn from the reservoir of the holy. All the time it remains within me. I am thankful for its thirst for compassion and justice, that my eyes behold the beauty of all creatures, that my hands know the privilege of righteous deeds. Baruch atah Adonai, asher b'yado nefesh kol chai, v'ruach kol basar ish. Turning the page. These daily reminders, not so much daily reminders, but reminders to look out for the miracles every day.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lesechvi bina להבחין בין יום ובין לילה.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, pokech ivrim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asurim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who lifts up the fallen.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, raka haaretz al hamayim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamechin mitzadei gaver.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, malbish arumim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, strength to the weary.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, המעביר שינה מעיניי ותנומה מעפעפיי.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani b'tzelem Elohim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani am chorin.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani Yisrael.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, עוזר ישראל בגבורה.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who crowns Israel with splendor.
Amen.
Page 94. Baruch she'amar, God spoke and the world came to be.
Yam ba 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 Baruch hu. Yam ba ra ra ya ba ra 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 Baruch shemo. Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam. Baruch hu. Baruch oseh v'reshit. Baruch shemo. ברוך אומר ועושה, ברוך הוא, ברוך גוזר ומקיים, ברוך שמו, ברוך מרחם על הארץ, ברוך הוא, ברוך מרחם על הבריות, ברוך שמו, ברוך משלם שכר טוב לרעיו, ברוך הוא, ברוך חי לעד וקיים לנצח, ברוך שמו, ברוך פודה ומציל, ברוך שמו.
On page 96, the Psalm for Shabbat, Psalm 92.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת.
Don't turn the page, 97, top of the page.
אשרי יושבי ביתך, עוד יהללוך סלע, אשרי העם שקרא לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו, אשרי יושבי ביתך, עוד יהללוך סלע, אשרי העם שקרא לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו, הללויה, 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 הללויה.
Very next page, Ilufinu. Even if our mouths were full of song as a sea, we still wouldn't be able to say enough praises. I sometimes feel like this one is, we're not really ready to go to the next part of the service, so we're going to put in another praise. And that's exactly what the words are. I feel like it's also put here, like it's here because when we go to the rest of the service, it won't be as like joyful maybe. So that's just what I'm thinking. We can try to make the rest of it joyful, but sometimes it just is, you know what I mean? Like the beginning is all songs and all upbeat, and then we go into the main part of the prayer. This is like, let's squeeze in one more fun one.
The Torah of the encore.
The Torah of the what? Encore.
The encore.
Yeah, exactly. The encore. On page 105. Together, 105 in the middle. You shall always be praised, great and holy God, our sovereign in heaven and on earth. Songs of praise and psalms of adoration become you, acknowledging your might and your dominion. Yours are strength and sovereignty, sanctity, grandeur, and glory always. We offer our devotion. Open our hearts in acclamation.
Baruch atah Adonai, el melech gadol batishbachot, el hodod adon haniflaot, habocher b'shirei zimra, melech elchei olamim.
Next page.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
Amen.
העלמד יברח ילותי וימליך מלכותי. בחייכון ויומכון ובחיי זכול בישראל. בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמירה ומברך לעולם ולעולם מעל מעיין. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמד קודשו יריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירון בעלמה ואמרו אמן.
Page 108.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or v'orei choshech, oseh shalom u'vorei et hakol, me'ir la'aretz v'ledarim alaha barachamim, uvtuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reishit, ma'rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chochma asita, mal ha'aretz kinyanecha, titbarach Adonai Eloheinu, al shavach ma'aseh yadecha, Ba'al Moreor Shasita Yifarucha Selah, Or Chadash Al Tzion Ta'ir, V'nizkach Ulanu Mehira La'oro, Baruch Atadonai, Yotzer Hama'orot. Page 113. Love your neighbor as yourself, you said, and light-blinded we saw that inner and outer worlds are one as you are one. You spoke and we wrote. We reached for you down the centuries, your light moving before us as we climbed, fell back and climbed again, your Sinai of life.
Baruch atah Adonai, habocher b'amo Yisrael be'ahava. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch shekevod malchuto le'olam va'ed.
You may be seated, and we continue on page 116.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ולכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי הייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
On page 121, in the middle of the page. The eternal truth is that you alone are God, and there is none else. Together, may the righteous of all nations rejoice in your love and exult in your justice. Let them beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks.
Let
The nation not lift up sword against nation, nor learn war anymore. You shall not hate your other. I'm trying to get away from this gendered language, and I keep stumbling on it. You shall not hate anyone in your heart. The stranger that sojourns with you shall be accepted as your equal, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Why do you crush my people and oppress the poor? Asked God. We know that the Eternal One defends the poor and upholds the rights of the needy. Praise to God Most High. Blessed is God and deserving of blessing.
את ישראל, ופדחינו מחה, יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני, כל ישראל. Page 124. אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, ve'Koneh HaKol, ve'Zocher Chasdei Avot ve'Imot, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ברופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר אדירנו, אדוני אדוננו, מדיר שמך, מדיר שמך בכל הארץ. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד לנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, בשבחך אלוהינו, מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
Page 132, at the top of the page.
Shabbat, chemdat yomim, oto karat Shabbat, yismechu b'malchutecha, shomre, shomre, shomre Shabbat, b'kore oneg Shabbat, yismechu b'malchutecha, shomre, shomre, shomre Shabbat, b'kore Shabbat, yismechu b'malchutecha, shomre, shomre, shomre Shabbat, b'kore oneg Shabbat, yismechu b'malchutecha, shomre, shomre, shomre Shabbat, b'kore oneg Shabbat.
Excuse me, we continue with the rest of the tefillah now through page 142. Shalom bimromah, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Shalom bimromah, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, We continue now on page 246, the service of the reading of the Torah. Page 246, we rise as we take the Torah from the ark.
Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, udvar Adonai miYerushalayim, Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo, Gadol Adonai, Unerono Shemo Yachdav, Lecha Adonai, Hagedula, Ve'hagevura, Ve'ativeret, Ve'anetzach, Ve'ahod, Ki chol bashamayim u'ba'aretz, Ki chol bashamayim u'ba'aretz, Lecha Adonai hamamlacha, Ve'amitnaseh lechol rosh, Al shlosha dvarim, Al shlosha dvarim ha'olam omer, Al shlosha dvarim ha'olam omer, Al shlosha dvarim, Al shlosha dvarim ha'olam omer, Al shlosha dvarim ha'olam
Molly, this is the world's heaviest Torah.
heavy with knowledge.
It's also really heavy. You want to tell us what we're reading? I'm bringing this over here for you.
So we will be reading from the end of Parshat Behalotecha. It is Numbers chapter 12, verses 1 through 16. And it can be found, talking and turning pages at the same time, and it can be found on page 965, right at Yud Bet 12, which is the chapter.
It's an obstacle course.
That is true. Can I call you up for the Aliyah? Yeah. Okay. Okay, make sure you use the microphone. Nala Amod, Harav, Shendel Chava, Bat Meir Befega, La Torah.
Very nice. Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Merach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Notin HaTorah.
Amen. Not close enough. We are modern Jews with microphones. Amen. ותדבר מרים ואהרון במשה אל אודות האישה הכושית אשר לקח, כי אישה כושית לקח. ויאמרו הרק אך במשה דיבר אדוני, הלא גם בנו דיבר. וישמע אדוני, והאיש משה ענב מאוד מכל האדם אשר על פני האדמה. ויאמר אדוני פתאום אל משה ואל אהרון ואל מרים, צאו שלושתכם אל אוהל מועד, ויצאו שלושתם. וירד אדוני בעמוד ענן, ויעמוד פתח האוהל. ויקרא אהרון ומרים, ויצאו שניהם. ויאמר שמעונה דברי, אם יהיה נביא אחם, אדוני במראה אליו אתוודה, בחלום אדבר בו. לא כן עבדי משה, בכל ביתי נאמן הוא, פה אל פה אדבר בו. ומראה ולא בחידות, ותמונת אדוני יביט. ומדוע לא יראיתם לדבר בעבדי במשה. ויחר אף אדוני בם וילך, והענן שר מעל האוהל, והנה מרים מצורעת כשלג. ויפן אהרון אל מרים, והנה מצורעת. ויאמר אהרון אל משה, בי אדוני, אל נא תשת אל נא תשת עלינו חטאת אשר נועלנו ואשר חטאנו. אל נא תהי כמת אשר בצאתו מרחם אמו, ויאכל חצי בשרו. ויצעק משה אל אדוני לאמור, אל נא רפא נא לה. ויאמר אדוני אל משה, ואביה ירק בפניה, הלא תיכלם שבעת ימים, תיסגר 7 ימים מחוץ למחנה. ואחר תאסף ותיסגר מרים מחוץ למחנה 7 ימים, והעם לא נסע עד האסף מרים. ואחר נסעו העם מחצרות, ויחנו במדבר פרן. Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Cushite woman he had married. He married a Cushite woman. They said, "Has the Eternal spoken only through Moses? Has God not spoken through us as well?" The Eternal heard it. Now, Moses was a very humble man, more so than any other human being on earth. Suddenly, the Eternal One called to Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, "Come out, you 3, to the tent of meeting." So the 3 of them went out. The Eternal came down in a pillar of cloud, stopped at the entrance of the tent, and called out, "Aaron and Miriam."
How do you know that's what God sounds like?
I don't. I mean, honestly, I don't. The 2 of them, The two of them came forward, and God said, "Hear these, my words.
That's better.
When prophets of the Eternal arise among you, I make myself known to them in a vision. I speak with them in a dream. Not so with my servant Moses. He is trusted throughout my household. With him I speak mouth to mouth, plainly and not in riddles, and he beholds the likeness of the Eternal. How then did you not shrink from speaking against my servant Moses?" Still incensed with them, Yichar off, his nose was hot. The Eternal departed. As the cloud withdrew from the tent, there was Miriam, stricken with snow-white scales. When Aaron turned toward Miriam, he saw that she was stricken with scales. And Aaron said to Moses, "O my Lord, account not to us the sin which we committed in our folly. Let her not be as a stillbirth, which emerges from its mother's womb with half its flesh eaten away." So Moses cried out to the Eternal, saying, "El na refana la, O God, pray heal her." But the Eternal One said to Moses, "If her father spat in her face, would she not bear her shame for 7 days? Let her be shut out of the camp for 7 days, and then let her be readmitted." So Miriam was shut out of camp 7 days, and the people did not march on until Miriam was readmitted. After that, the people set out from Chatzerot and encamped in the wilderness of Paran.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
I'm going to come over here. We're going to take a moment now for Misha Berach. I know, I'm coming over there. Page 253. Page 253. We hold in our hearts for healing this morning. El na rafan Allah for healing, complete refuah shlema, healing of body and spirit. Ira Altshuler, Howard Bregman, Ryan Cohen, Fern Diamond, Ann Fay, Judy Forrest, Ken Franklin, Piers Haggard, Aryaman Harlalka, David Mordechai Cohen, Linda Jube, Naum Kaplan, Carol Kaufman, Sylvia Kasparowski, Al Camper, Todd Cart, Lee Kramer, Albert Lepre, Susan Lothar, Hinda Sarabat Chana Pearl, Sophie Matiash, Joanne Mandel, Jonathan Miller, Edward Mims, Joanne Newman, Harav Shmuel Ephraim Ben Panina, Lev Podorovsky, Jonathan Robeson, Mike Rosen, Oliver Scheibel, Howard Schumann, Adam Schusterman, John Spear, Bill Stein, Jan Stoller, Jackie Student, Jordan Wilson, Alan Wolk. Other names for healing?
Stuart Weisberger, Melvin Weisberger, and Denise Weisberger.
Jeremy Greenberg.
Go ahead.
Isabel Linebacker, Robin Mascara,
Avotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, veYaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, veLeah, hu yivarech v'yirapeh et hacholim. Mi sheberach Avotenu, Avraham, Avraham, Yitzchak, veYaakov. Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, veLeah, hu yivarech v'yirapeh et hacholim.
Please rise as we lift and dress the Torah. You may be seated. So what's the matter? What happened? Why was God so mad about Miriam, Aaron saying what was the truth, right? Like, he married a Cushite woman. So they said he married a Cushite woman. And then kind of like all hell broke loose. So what was the problem? What was the next thing they said? And has God spoken only through Moses? Has he not spoken through us as well? Is that the problem? I don't know. Gary, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, about a year ago, Marilyn and I talked a little bit about the Shalom, and we talked about something called Motzi Ra. And Motzi Ra, I believe, is bringing forth evil. It's also very similar to the Hebrew word of Mitzora, or the plague that might have been on Miriam's skin. And the point is to not to talk about other people to another person, but if you're going to say something directly to that person. Here in the Hebrew, it looks like they're talking to some other Miriam and Aaron, or talking to some other folks.
Because it doesn't say, that's a good observation. Doesn't say who they're talking to. That's a nice, good observation, right? It just says they're speaking, and it's unclear whether they're talking to each other or they're talking to someone else. Well, so the problem is that they're talking to someone else? It's gossip. What about if I just say, if my brother and I are talking about our other brother, which we don't have, and we would say, oh, he's married to a person from Boston. Yeah, he likes, worse, he's from Baltimore, and he follows that other team that's from Baltimore, football team, yeah.
The other thing is, it just doesn't matter. Anytime you say anything about someone else, to someone else, no matter your intention, technically, it's the Shabbat.
Right, technically he's right. So it's impossible to say to not have to say information about someone else, right? Like that would for example, that would prevent me. Would it prevent me from talking to my brother about our mother who's declining in health or whatever? Would that, if I say, "Gosh, Mom seems a little old today," or she just turned 91, so she's old. No, sorry, 89, yeah. Yeah, Bert.
Many years ago, I did a study with a faculty member at HUC in New York, and looked at the work of the Chafetz Chaim. And what Chafetz Chaim said was praising someone could also be a problem, because you never know what the person is feeling toward the person being praised. And then it might arouse enmity in that in that other person.
As in like jealousy, or so the Chafetz Chaim is a big proponent of not speaking lashon hara, right? So a couple things. Let's just sort of get our facts straight. So it is a fact, maybe, that he just married this Cushite woman. She's from Cush. Well, what does that mean? So some say, well, maybe it's not Zipporah. Maybe it's another person. So like, there was I don't know. Zipporah is who we always think of as Moses' wife. Maybe it's someone else, and then is like, I don't know, talking about like as if he had more than one wife, and that's a problem. Or maybe it's a compliment, because there's a theory that the Cushites, that's from Ethiopia, and maybe they were especially beautiful there, and so maybe they're like, oh, so behind that sentence of that observation of she's a Cushite is she's a really extraordinarily beautiful. Others say the opposite, of course, and they were ugly. And so maybe that they were saying she was ugly, maybe even racist, and saying that she was black, and that's like a negative thing, as if just an observation. So it could mean anything, and it doesn't matter, because somehow there's still this thing that happens to Miriam. So I want to, I kind of want to go in a little bit of a different direction, if that's okay. So we have this idea that whatever she did, whatever they said, it was a way to like other Miriam, this Cushite woman, to like put her over here, like that we're in and she's out, is an exclusionary kind of thing. Are you willing to go with that for a minute? Like, by any time we're talking about a third person, there's an othering that's happening. We're not talking to that person, we're talking about that person, and that's an exclusionary thing. And so if we go with that theory, then the fact that Miriam had to be separated from the community is kind of a, what's the word I want? It's like appropriate, thank you. It's an appropriate measure for measure. Midah keneged midah is what I'm looking for. Exactly appropriate. So the punishment's fitting the crime, because if Miriam was trying to exclude Moses and his wife, or even just his wife, then as a punishment that fits the crime, she's excluded from the community. I mean, how does that sound as something kind of interesting? Never really thought about it that way before, but I kind of like that idea, that the problem is an exclusion, right? The problem is that they're somehow not part of us. Like, Molly, what you said was interesting. As long as you're telling your mother about your concerns, then you're bringing her in, as opposed to just talking about her and as if she's not part of the consideration, right? So I think it's actually interesting. So I want to talk to you about a conversation that we had the other night in the Introduction to Judaism class, where we were talking a little bit about, it was supposed to be a panel on, the panel it's called Diversity Panel, and so normally when we do a diversity panel, and especially in the Introduction to Judaism class, we mean like Reform, Reconstructionist, Conservative, Orthodox, right? Like, that wouldn't surprise anyone to know that was what the panel was going to be. But I decided to do, since it was my option, I decided to do actually a different kind of diversity panel, and I invited people that aren't part of the mainstream of Pittsburgh Jewish institutional life. And so I invited Rabbi Danielle Lashaw, who is a who works for Hillel International and is a Reconstructionist rabbi by training, and Olivia Tucker, who many of you remember as our amazing program person, and who works for Svara, the radical, God, I just forget how they term it, but it's the radical queer yeshiva in Chicago, and Kashir Halev Fife, who the Kohenet, the priestess. So one of the things that we were talking about in the course of the conversation was like who is included in the Jewish community and who is included in the Jewish community and who's not included in Jewish community, and then how can we be more inclusive? How can we bring more people in as opposed to like just this sort of narrow, you have to be this kind of person, this kind of Jew in order to be part of the Jewish community. I thought that was like the sort of why I invited everyone in. But one of the things that that we talked about, not only in terms of like not necessarily feeling like we fit in, was that Rabbi Lashaw brought up that Jews of color, Jews with disabilities have this huge wage gap. There's a huge wage gap between Jews with disability and Jews without disabilities. Same educational background, same anything else would be the same, but the fact that a person has a disability makes their earning power that much lower, significantly lower. And also, Jews of color have the same issue. So I'm starting to think about that bear with me, that we can't continue on without Miriam, right? We have to wait for her. The text tells us that after 7 days she will be readmitted, and she was shut out of the camp for 7 days, and the people did march on until Miriam was readmitted. To me, that's a sign that we don't march on without the people that are excluded, the people that have been excluded. And we can't go, we can't move without them. And that, to me, that's a very powerful lesson for us. So I'm going away, obviously, from this whole Lashon Hara thing, but just the idea that she had to be excluded. She knows what it feels like to be excluded, right? So Miriam is part of the in-group, imagine, right? She's part of the in-group. She others someone. She's taken out of the camp. Now she's the other, but we can't leave until she's included. And I really love that idea that, like, this is what it means to be a people, right? This is what it means to include all of us. I'm especially thinking about this because of our conversation that we had the other night, but also because today or tomorrow, Juneteenth? Tomorrow, because for some reason it's being celebrated everywhere today. But it's tomorrow. Yeah, but it's tomorrow. So what is Juneteenth? Why do we have this day? After how long? Yeah, it was like... Yeah, so here we are. I'm just thinking about this, right? So the rest of the world is going along knowing that the end of slavery is supposed to have happened, right? That we're supposed to be done with slavery. But there's people who are still enslaved. Like for a year, no one bothered to tell them. And so they're still enslaved, and it's like we're holding us back. I'm thinking about this. So why we celebrate this Juneteenth? Like, what a shame. To me, it's such an embarrassment, this day. This day, to me, I mean, I understand it's a celebration, but it's such an embarrassment to me that here we are. It took a year for people to find out that they were free. And now that everyone is free, obviously there's issues. Now we can finally move on, to me, is the celebration, I guess. But it feels shameful a little bit, like we are celebrating, but it feels bad to be. Anyway, my thoughts on, and also being Pride Month. So we have this holiday of Juneteenth in here where we're finally recognizing the end of slavery and the end of enslaved people, and Pride with all of the awareness of how much is done, but yet how much work still needs to be done in terms of bring people along. How profound for that we're reading this portion right now that says we cannot move on until everyone is included. I think that it's really beautifully situated in this month and in our time. So I wonder if you have thoughts about that. Gary?
Yeah, the passage says, Miriam and Aaron spoke. I think Aaron accept some of this blame, change, whatever, responsibility for speaking up. He doesn't say very, I don't think he said anything, nor does he get scales.
Yeah.
So what happens to the men, what happens to the men who speak the Torah and get away with it?
Do they though? You know, I mean, so if you think about it, does anyone really, I mean, the damage is done. Like if you just listen, let's just imagine for a second that he was just listening to this gossip. Then he's also complicit just by listening, right? So that could be part of it. I mean, I'm kind of making that up, but I like to make things up, right? So also. Yeah, it's called midrash, right? I'm just right before your very eyes. But I also think, you know, it's unclear. The Hebrew does seem to indicate that it was Miriam and that Aaron wasn't public. But I'm just, for the sake of this conversation, going to say that it's everyone's issue, whether you say it or you listen to it or you participate in it, in this othering, and not waiting, you know, so that everyone is included. That we're all complicit.
Wouldn't get very upset at this? I mean, here's a man who gets away with it apparently, even listening.
Yeah, but for me right now, that's a distraction. I mean, maybe if you ask me next year, I'll say something else. But right now, today, I feel like that's a distraction. I mean, I'm choosing to focus on something else. I mean, we could focus on that if we want. I just feel like the world is calling us to focus on something else right now. And if he's listening, then he's a problem. Yeah.
I struggle with situations where you have a positive simcha. You have a bat of bar mitzvah, you have a baby naming, you have a wedding, you have an anniversary celebrating, birthday. How can one not praise that person and lift up that person?
Oh. Well, what about saying it directly to someone? What about telling someone directly, I'm happy for you? You're allowed to do that.
On the other hand, if we are applying for a particular pulpit as rabbis, it is perfectly justifiable for the search committee of that congregation to investigate what about this person, what about this person.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the time I was applying for another position, and the president of the congregation said, he said a lot of wonderful things, but he's not St. Bert. And I thought, that's unreal.
Saint Bert.
St. Bert.
Wrong tradition.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So it is obviously, I mean, this wasn't my exact point today, but I'll just clarify. Obviously, sometimes we do need to talk about other people. Sometimes there's a need to know. Like, for example, if someone is going to do something dangerous, get involved with a person who you know is a problem, it's on us to say, that person's a problem. I know that person's a problem from my own experience, or directly, someone I know has had a direct experience with that person, and you need to stay away. Like, I feel like that's appropriate. If you know in a job description, a job that someone is a problem, like, it's on us to say, better watch out. I mean, if they're not Saint Bert, that's different. But if there's real problems that led the person to say they're Saint Bert, not Saint Bert. I think that sometimes, even if there's like a recommendation, like, can you recommend a dentist? Well, I like this one because she's gentle, or I like this one because she gives me more than 45 seconds of her time. You can say that, or this restaurant gave me like ghastly food, right? Like, don't go there. It's really bad. I had this terrible experience there. It's different than saying you should never go to that place because the owners are X, Y, or Z. I feel like that's different. I feel like the information is different. And why are we sharing information is important too. Like, you don't want someone to go to the wrong doctor, get involved with the wrong person, eat at the wrong place, in the scheme of things, not that important, right? But you can share that information. But when we talk about things, we should just be careful. Like, why am I saying this thing? I think is important to think about. Yeah, Marilyn.
I was thinking, we did do this research, but maybe a perfect example of what you're getting at is like if we were married or a sister was married to an abusive man, they divorce, and that man starts dating another woman.
Exactly.
And then you're sitting on this information, when you know, actual experiences, and I think it's a real struggle if you really are beholden to this.
But no, in that case, you say I believe that you would say this is a danger.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I think that you sometimes step between a rock and a hard place. If this is very important to you. But I also think, listening to Molly and others, I think maybe what it's saying is be careful. Consider. Don't just run off at the mouth all the time. Think about what you're saying and how you're conducting yourself and so forth. Maybe it's just telling you and Aaron, be careful.
And going with what my sort of point was today is when we are othering someone, that's a problem, probably, right? We're not bringing someone into the conversation. We're talking about what for whatever reason. In that situation, you're doing it so that this person doesn't get hurt. But so thinking about our motives, like why would we be sharing that information? And to remember just the danger of not considering other people, not bringing them along, not having them be part of the community. Because the important part about Miriam is she comes back. She comes back, and because we can't go on without her. We can't go on without anyone. So even if you wanted to stay on the gossip level, so she made a mistake and she came back, right? She made a mistake and she learned her lesson, let's say, and she came back. But on the deeper level, I think is we need her as part of the community. We need everyone as part of the community. We can't march on without. All right, thank you. Let's put the Torah back. That would happen on page 256 at the top. And please rise as we return the Torah to the Lord.
Hallelujah, Shem Adonai, ki niskav shemo levado, odo al eretz v'shamayim, vayarem keren le'amo, tehillah lechol chasidav, b'nei Yisrael am keravo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Ki lekach tov natati lachem, torati al ta'azovu. Etz chaim hi lamachazikim ba, v'tomechea me'ushar, derachea darchei noam, v'chol tivoteiha shalom. Hashivenu Adonai Eilecha v'nashuva, Chadish, Chadish Yameinu, Chadish Yameinu kekedem.
Will you remain standing and turn to page 282?
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרה בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום, והשיבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Kaddish is on page 294. We think of our loved ones who died recently within the last 30 days. Joseph Indovina, Claudio Carmiel, John C. King, Jose Claudio Letichevsky, and Nancy L. McGahan. We also remember those who died at this season in years past, whose yahrzeit we mark on this Shabbat. Belle Baldeck, Dr. Leonard Cohen, Fanny Cohen, Cynthia DePastino, Mary Egger, Robert Frummerman, Susan Kantrowitz, I think it's Frummerman, Robert Frummerman, Sue Kantrowitz, Paul Mimkosis, Bernard Kramer, Renee Kramer, Dr. Morton Allen Kress, Estelle Krumman, Jack Krumman, Claire B. Lichtenstuhl, Ruth Lieber, Renee Linder, Jack Oppenheimer, Ann Margolis Parker, Esther Landau Reich, Marion Reamer, Christopher Rourke, Jeanette Katz Rosenberg, Yetta G. Rosenblum, Norman Rosenfeld, Michael Kersen Schaefer, Sarah Scheiner, Leonard C. Schneider, Frank Silverman, Abraham Sadolowski, Martin S. Sloan, Elaine P. Smith, Iris Teplitz, Saul Weitz. Any other names for Kaddish today?
Those who died in terrible mass shootings over the last.
Zichronam livracha, may all their memories be for blessing. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah.
Amen.
B'alma divrach yirtei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon uv'yamechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. B'galau v'zman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'alam olmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalal shmei dekudasha b'richu. Leila min kol birchata v'sherata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiran b'alma v'imru amin. Ehei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. You may be seated.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvi tevel ve'imru amen.
We will conclude our service in just a moment with Adon Olam, page 321, in Kiddush and Motzi. There is snack outside, like little to-go box. To go. The building is closed tomorrow and Monday in observance of Juneteenth, and that makes the garden closed also. But next week, there is an interesting lecture happening by being given by Greg Siegel. It's called Get Happy, the Science Behind Gardens and Mental Health. And of course, you know that it'll be interesting see, so interesting. If you want to attend either in person or online, there's an RSVP through the website. Even though we had our official goodbye to Molly last night, next week, this week from today, will be your last service with us. We are going to make sure we do a beautiful, beautiful version of the Yismachu with the 3 parts of harmony with Greg and Molly and Don. It's going to be gorgeous. Be here so you could add your voice. It'll be the last chance we get to do that. Thank you to Don. Thank you to Molly, all of you for all of your contributions. Thank you, Luke. And I think that's it. Page 321, Adon Olam.
Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yetzir nivra le'et nasa v'chertzo kol azai melech shemo nikra azai melech shemo nikra ve'acharei kichlot hakol levado yimloch nora ve'hu haya ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל עוד היא לעולם לעולם, כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש. על כן ברכנו את יום השבת ויקדשהו. סברי חבריי, ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן. אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, המוציא לחם מן הארץ.
Shalom. We do that so that people online can hear it. It has no impact on your hearing at all.
And Greg does traveling music. It's so nice.
Come get a piece of challah, turn your prayer book, get a little